Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're immersing ourselves in a really ancient religious system, nearly 5 millennia old. It's centered around Bastet, a goddess of, well, beauty, dance, fertility.
She's definitely one of those fascinating and, popular figures from Egypt. Dates way back, Second Dynasty, maybe 2890 BC.
Right, and most people probably know her as the cat goddess.
Exactly. But our deep dive today, using the sources we've looked at, it isn't just about listing her attributes, protection, love, celebration. We're really digging into a kind of theological paradox.
Okay.
How did a common house cat, basically a pest controller, become so sacred that killing one meant, well, capital punishment?
Okay, the death penalty angle.
Yeah.
Let's unpack this then. So the core idea from the material is that this link between Bastet and the cat, it wasn't just symbolic.
Not at all. It was fundamental.
Yeah.
The sources suggest the practical everyday cat, the one keeping mice out of the grain, directly shaped how the goddess herself was understood, her very nature.
Her nature, okay.
Yeah.
So the cat influenced the goddess, not just the other way around.
Yeah. That's the insight, yeah. Bastet's whole image reflects the cat's own dual nature, doesn't it? Fierce little predator, but also this gentle, protective companion.
Predator and protector. That duality feels key. So where do we start with that?
We have to start with her origins, which are surprisingly fierce.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the Bastet we usually picture, the cat-headed woman, that's not how she started out, is it?
Not at all. Initially, she's terrifying, represented as a woman with a lioness head, or sometimes just a full-on lioness, fierce, vengeful even.
Like Sekhmet. I remember the sources often link them or confuse them.
Exactly like Sekhmet, the Lady of War. They were very closely associated, sometimes seemingly interchangeable in those early days. Bastet's early form embodied that raw, destructive power of the sun.
And her titles reflected that, Lady of Terror.
Lady of Terror, Lady of Slaughter. Pretty chilling stuff. That's a long way from fertility and dance.
Definitely. So how do you get from Lady of Slaughter to, the goddess you pray to for children? How did they bridge that huge gap?
Well, that's where this amazing myth comes in. It's almost like theological damage control. The story goes that Ra, the sun god, saw this lioness form Sekhmet, or Bastet, in her fierce aspect, destroying humanity. And he had to stop her. But how? He couldn't overpower her directly, so he tricked her.
Tricked her? How?
He got her drunk, massively drunk, mixed vast quantities of beer with red ochre or pomegranate juice, made it look like blood, and spread it over the fields.
No way.
Yeah, she lapped it all up thinking it was blood, passed out, and, well, woke up significantly calmer. Pacified.
So the hangover basically saved humanity and created the gentler Bastet.
Pretty much. That act of sedation, let's call it, created the dualistic deity. The potential for ferocity is still there, but now it's balanced by this calmer, benevolent side.
And that change is mirrored in how she's depicted later on.
Absolutely. As her cult grew, especially around Bubastis, her image softens, the lioness fades, and you get the domestic cat, or the woman with a cat's head. It's a deliberate shift.
Symbolizing the peaceful aspects, protection instead of destruction.
Exactly. Protection, fertility, motherhood, music, joy, all the things you associate with a thriving home and society.
And the imagery becomes really domestic too, right? Like those statues showing her as a cat with kittens.
Yes, those are so telling, often found as votive offerings. The number of kittens sometimes even represented how many children the person praying hoped to have.
Wow, so it's a direct line from the divine to the family hearth.
It really is. That shift from the fearsome lioness, the desert predator, to the familiar house cat, it maps directly onto the cat becoming essential in everyday Egyptian life. The goddess becomes the divine version of that household protector.
Okay, so the myth explains the divine shift. But let's talk about the practical side. This deep reverence for cats, it wasn't just mystical feelings, was it? The sources seem to emphasize utility.
Oh, hugely utilitarian. You have to remember, Egypt's economy ran on grain. Agriculture was everything.
Right, the Nile, the harvests.
Exactly. And what's the biggest threat to stored grain? Rodents. Mice, rats. Cats were the elite pest control, absolutely crucial for keeping the national food supply safe.
So protecting the grain meant protecting the entire civilization from famine. The cat was infrastructure.
In a way, yes. Indispensable infrastructure that just happened to purr. That alone would make them valuable. But there's more.
Snakes.
Snakes, especially venomous ones like cobras, a real danger in ancient households. Cats are brilliant snake hunters. So they weren't just protecting the food, they were protecting the family, guardians of the home.
Okay, so economic stability and public safety. That's a pretty solid foundation for sacred status.
And it didn't stop there. this practical role gets elevated to the cosmic level.
How do you mean?
Well, you look at religious texts like the Book of the Dead. You find the depictions of this great divine cat, sometimes called Mu, who is often seen as an aspect of Ra or Bastet.
And what's Mew doing?
He's shown killing Apophis, the giant serpent of chaos who tries to swallow the sun every night. It's the ultimate battle of order versus chaos, Mawat versus Isfet.
So the everyday act of a cat killing a snake in the house is mirrored in the gods' fight against cosmic evil.
Precisely. It reinforces their role as protectors on every level, from the mundane to the divine.
Which explains why their status became so formalized. They weren't quite gods themselves, but the sources call them sacred beings, manifestations of the goddess.
Which gave them incredible legal protection. Unprecedented, really.
And this leads back to that death penalty. It sounds so extreme. Killing a cat, even by accident, was a capital offense.
That's what the historical accounts, like from Diodorus Siculus, tell us. The death penalty. It's shocking to us.
It really is. What does that level of severity tell us? It wasn't just about being kind to animals, clearly.
No, not in our modern sense. It was about cosmic balance and appeasing the goddess. Killing her sacred animal, her manifestation, was a direct offense against Bastet.
And offending Bastet risked
What?
her reverting to Sekhmet.
Exactly. You risk invoking that destructive, vengeful lioness aspect. That could mean plague, famine, social chaos, disaster. The death penalty wasn't just punishment. It was seen as a necessary sacrifice, perhaps, to restore divine order and prevent catastrophe.
A religious deterrent, essentially.
A powerful one. But alongside that severe law, you had this deep personal connection.
The mourning rituals. Shaving eyebrows.
Yes. Herodotus mentions that when a household cat died naturally, the entire family would shave their eyebrows as a sign of deep grief. It shows they weren't just useful, they were beloved members of the family.
So you have this tension. Legally untouchable, potentially invoking divine wrath if harmed, but also deeply mourned on a personal level.
It's a fascinating mix of fear, utility, and genuine affection.
And all this devotion, this complex relationship, it really centers on one place, doesn't it? Bubastis, her Bast.
The House of Bastet, yeah. And the Nile Delta, that was the main hub for her cult. Hugely prosperous city, apparently, right up until the Persians arrived.
Ah, yes, the Persian conquest, 525 BC. There's that story about Cambyses II.
Herodotus tells it. How much is truth and how much is Greek storytelling? Well, who knows for sure. But the story itself is revealing.
Remind us, he used cats somehow.
Supposedly, he had his soldiers paint images of Bastet on their shields and even drive cats, maybe other secret animals too, in front of their advancing lines.
The idea being the Egyptians wouldn't dare fight back for fear of harming the cats.
Exactly. Risking injury to the cats might bring down Bastet's fury. According to the story, the Egyptians were paralyzed and surrendered. Whether it happened exactly like that, debatable. But it shows the reputation Egypt had. Their reverence for cats was famous enough to be weaponized, even if only in legend.
It definitely paints a picture of extreme devotion. But back in Bubastis itself, the main event was this huge annual festival.
Oh, the Festival of Bastet, sometimes called the Festival of Drunkenness. Herodotus claims it was the biggest party in Egypt. He estimated, what, 700,000 pilgrims?
700,000, that's enormous, like a modern mega festival.
The logistics must have been insane. Barges packed with people sailing down the Nile. And the purpose, again, it ties back to that duality.
Keeping Bastet happy, keeping Sekhmet away.
Pretty much. Keep the goddess content, flattered, entertained, so she stays in her benevolent form. Don't let her get bored or angry.
And the rituals were designed for that. Music, wine.
Lots wine, yes. Music was key, especially the sistrum, that sacred rattle. Its sound was thought to soothe the goddess and ward off evil. There was dancing, singing, general revelry. Herodotus even mentions women lifting their robes, a kind of ritual exposure maybe linked to fertility or just ecstatic abandon.
So a massive state-sponsored effort to keep the goddess placated through celebration.
Right. But here's where it gets really complex. We have this intense reverence, this huge festival, and then we have the cat mummy industry.
Ah, this feels like the core contradiction the sources point to.
It really is.
Yeah.
Pilgrims flocking to Bubastis and other sites, they wanted souvenirs, but more importantly, they wanted to leave an offering, right, to gain the goddess's favor.
Like buying a candle in a church today?
Kind of like that, yeah. A votive offering. And the most popular offering for Bastet was a mummified cat.
Okay. But where did all these mummified cats come from? There were hundreds of thousands of pilgrims.
Exactly. Demand was huge. So the temples, it seems, got into the business of supplying them. They ran essentially cat breeding operations.
Wait, breeding cats specifically to be killed and mummified for sale?
The archaeological evidence strongly suggests that. Excavations at places like Socorro near Memphis or at Bubastis itself have uncovered literal catacombs stuffed with mummified cats. We're talking hundreds of thousands in a single site, maybe millions across Egypt over time.
That feels completely at odds with the death penalty and the shaved eyebrows. How can a culture do both? Revere them so much they'd execute someone for killing one, but also mass-produce them for ritual sacrifice?
That's the paradox, isn't it? It challenges our simple picture of sacred. The evidence from some of these mummies is quite stark.
What did they find?
X-rays and CT scans of some mummy bundles show many of the cats died young, often very young, and sometimes violently necks broken, for instance. It suggests they weren't beloved pets living out their lives. At this institutional industrial level, they were a resource, a commodity for the religious market.
Wow. So, personal piety versus institutional practice.
And it gets even more complicated, because it wasn't always even a cat inside the wrapping.
What do you mean? The fake mummies?
Exactly. Some of these beautifully wrapped mummy bundles, when scanned or unwrapped, contain, well, not much. Maybe a few cat bones, maybe just some mud, pebbles, sticks, bits of cloth, arranged vaguely in the shape of a cat.
They were selling empty packages. Or packages with just filler.
It appears so in some cases. This is maybe the most striking piece of evidence.
What does that imply? That the temples were just scamming pilgrims?
Maybe partly. Or maybe it suggests something deeper about the ritual itself. Perhaps over time, the act of offering, the symbolic gesture represented by the wrapped package in the shape of a cat, became more important than the actual contents.
So the ritual symbol detached from the actual sacred animal.
It seems plausible. The intention, the form, the transaction with the temple, perhaps that was deemed sufficient to gain Bastet's favor. It points towards, the commodification of faith once religion becomes an industry on that scale.
The sacred can become a product, and potentially a disposable one. That is a paradox. And this tension, this sort of coded meaning, you see it reflected in their art too, right? It wasn't just pretty pictures of cats.
Definitely not just decorative. The iconography is packed with meaning. You see countless votive statues, bronze, stone, Faience Bastet as the seating cat, or the cat-headed woman, often holding that sistrum we mentioned, or the ankh, the symbol of life, reinforcing her roles.
Then specific details matter, like on famous pieces.
Absolutely. Take the Geyer Anderson cat in the British Museum. It's beautiful, but it's also encoded. It wears earrings, a nose ring, and a protective wadjet eye amulet around its neck. There's a scarab beetle, symbolizing rebirth, etched on its head. Every element reinforces protection, divinity, regeneration.
And cats appear in other contexts too. Funerary art.
Yes, often shown under the chair of the deceased, sometimes still hunting birds or snakes, continuing that protective role even into the afterlife. Or, like we said, as the divine cat Mew defeating Apophis.
So if we try to pull all this together, these two extremes, on one side, you have incredibly deep personal reverence. People mourning their pets, the story of Prince Thutmose supposedly having a dedicated sarcophagus for his cat Tammet.
That genuine affection and respect, yes.
And on the other side, you have this huge institutionalized cult industry, mass breeding, likely violent deaths for many temple cats, and even these, fraudulent mummy bundles.
It forces us to see their relationship with the cat as deeply complex, mirroring Bastet herself, lioness and cat, fierce protector and gentle companion, indispensable guardian and, in some contexts, a ritual commodity.
They needed the cat for survival, elevated it to divine status with extreme legal backing.
And yet, the very system built to honor that divinity ended up treating the animal, at least sometimes, as an expendable part of a religious transaction.
It's fascinating how Bastet's legacy endures, though. Even today, that perception of the cat as graceful, mysterious, maybe a little bit divine, it feels like it traces right back to her.
It really does, but it leaves us with a challenging question, doesn't it? Based on everything the sources show, the mass production, the violent ends, the fakes, you have to ask yourself, was the cat in ancient Egypt uniformly sacred in the way we might imagine? Or did the practical economic demands of organized religion fundamentally reshape that sacredness, turning the divine animal at times into just another valuable but ultimately disposable resource? It really makes you think about where piety ends and, profit begins.